Hello, welcome to The Spread, Nesson's Sports Betting Picks podcast. I am Nesson.com's Mike Cole, joined not once again, nor as always, but by another cast of our rotating crew, Jason Ounpraseuth. Did I say that right? Ounpraseuth. It's just we're never gonna get there. I apologize. I'm sure this is a cross that you've borne for your entire life. I should be better. I will be better next time if you join me here on The Spread. But thank you for obliging me. Ricky is once again doing more important things than talking about all the latest and greatest in sports betting. So here you are. Keegan also is in the midst of doing something with a fish and Shark Tanks. So here we are. What's up? How are you?
Hey, we have our whole Nesson faction. We have our whole group of characters that we got here, and the fish tease is for later. So stay tuned for that. But excited to join you here and talk sports betting.
So there is some that you mentioned the kind of the teasing of the fish there that is somewhat correlated to some of the things that we're going to talk about today. You and I kind of a bit of a smorgasbord, if you will. We'll do some Patriots / NFL free agency. We'll do a little baseball, and then we'll talk wrestling, which is one of your specialties, I suppose. You are a co-star on the I don't even know, not a spinoff, a segment on Boston has entered the chat. Ringside Review, I believe it is called. Let's pilot something at some point. It feels like that's got more legs there. It's a good time to be a wrestling fan, so we'll get into that. As WrestleMania is now 6 weeks away?
Almost there, right around the corner.
Yeah, that's gonna be a long time. So there's a lot to get into there as well. Starting off, I guess you like to bet, right? That's kind of like one of your things.
That's one way to put it.
I don't mean to pigeonhole you or
for sure.
or color you as a major sports betting / maybe addict degenerate, but you are the only person I know, especially on our team, who has a shirt that you were basically comped from a casino.
More or less, yeah. You get the rewards from the casino,
yeah,
and you don't get points, and you get buy stuff off of it.
So just even being a part of a rewards program at a casino is far more involved than I care to get into. But good for you. You make the big bucks, so I understand that you just got to let it ride.
It's mostly a lot of losing.
Yeah. So what is your game of choice?
In terms of the casino?
Whatever. How do you like to gamble your money?
Sports betting is a big thing. Betting futures, a lot of props. I don't really bet a lot about sides and overs. I know that's typically for the football during the NFL season. Right. That's you and Ricky's thing. But, that's not really, just the way the lines move and stuff. But I like betting on the players and, just betting on overs or unders.
Do you have models or anything? What's your process look like?
Not particularly. Just a lot of looking at trends and looking at different matchups and stuff. Trying to test my ball knowledge, so to speak.
Yeah,
which, you are. It is kind of hit or miss.
Major ball knower. So how'd you get the sweatshirt? What have you been? You hit the tables too?
You get the tables, and you're just part of the rewards program, and they send you an email to go pick it up, and that's it.
I don't want to. I feel like we probably shouldn't get into the details too much, but this is a local casino. They have pretty high limits or minimums.
Yeah, they do.
So you're going down there throwing your weight around a little bit, huh?
From time to time, yeah. I mean, the minimums are very high.
Yeah.
I mean, the summertime, it's you go on the weekdays at least when there's not work around.
Hell yeah.
But then definitely do it every weekend. But you hope you win a lot, and so that's your bankroll for the next time you go in.
So what do you play at the table? Do you play blackjack?
A little bit of blackjack, a little poker, roulette.
Do they have poker, like actual poker, or is it like an offshoot something or other?
It's a mix of both. There is upstairs poker
table. They have
a
poker room there?
Texas Hold'em.
Yeah.
And all of that. I don't do that enough. That's a lot of time processing thing. Just more of just the offshoot games like the 3-card or 4-card kind of stuff.
As a millennial who grew up in the 2000s, went through the poker phase. I miss it dearly. I did go to Vegas a few years ago and tried to. That's an intimidating. That's the other thing too. Like the fact that you, an relatively unassuming gentleman, can go in there and just sit down and gamble is something I'm jealous of. I was like super intimidated the handful of times I've been to Vegas, and I went to a poker room, like the lowest stakes I could find, and I was at the table for maybe a half hour, and I wasn't looking to lose a lot of money. I did not play my best. Obviously, didn't get cards either, and so this was a very humbling experience. As I'm getting up from the table, one of the guys looks at me and he goes, "Where are you going?" I was like, I'm out of money. He's like, "Oh man, we were really hoping you'd stay." And it's like, that's not a great sign when you get up from a table and people are sad to see you go. So that
speaking of fish, that's exactly what they thought you were.
Very good tie in there. How's your car? This is something this is part of the entire, the spread brand. Do you have a good car? You've had some issues with your car too.
I've had some issues with the starter on the car and a couple other things, but it's gone pretty strong for the past couple months.
Do you ever think like maybe you should take some of the money that you're spending at this casino and maybe put it into a new car?
No, I've never thought that. I'm not a car guy.
Me neither.
I have a very capable Toyota RAV4. It does the job and it gets me to work every day, and that's all it needs to do.
For now, yeah. Our colleague Sean McGuire came in this morning, and the first thing he said to me was, "You still haven't gotten your mirror fixed." So that's a major show update. I ordered a new side view mirror this morning.
Nice.
So I feel like if Sean's giving me gruff over it, it's probably time to make something happen. So
they're pretty easy to put on. I've had that issue before. It's pretty simple.
Really?
Yeah.
So did you have to take off the entire inside of the door?
You did have to.
Yeah, that feels like it might never go back. At least it's the side door. So anyway, anything else you want to get off your chest? Here's the chance to do it.
Not particularly. I think I've compromised myself enough about my gambling activity.
This is the trust tree. I mean, no one's watching anyway. So anyway, okay, let's get into it. You and Keegan, last week's co-host, were not very. I don't want to overstate your interest in the NFL Combine, but the Combine was in the office a lot last week. Is that something that you follow closely? Do you feel like you've got a good grasp on the draft prospects, or is it just kind of like background noise?
It's a lot of background noise. I rely on a lot of Daniel Jeremiah, everyone's best friend,
sure,
everyone's favorite expert, just to give you the insight. Of course, obviously Keegan's a good resource as well for Nesson.com, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's kind of an interesting process, especially nowadays, especially all the prospects, they're not really working out anymore. Shadur Sanders, he decided not to throw. And, as we saw with Will Campbell, it's a very big risk to embarrass yourself in front of millions of people and have you be judged for your career.
Yeah, it's a good point, especially when we're talking about, eighths of an inches when your wingspan of your arms and things like that. So
and guys running flat pads.
It's just a very weird thing. We will kind of get a little bit more into that as we go, but I did want to kind of focus in on the Patriots to start. So that's the other thing too. The NFL, the calendar is kind of strange, where you've got nothing after the Super Bowl into the Combine, and then the Combine goes right into free agency, and then the draft. And so it's like you would think maybe they should rearrange this, but I also understand why you want to do free agency before the draft. You want to figure out what you got. With the Patriots, that's a major question that they have to answer. They've got, depending on who you look at, anywhere from like $125 to $129 million in cap space. That is by far the most. The next closest is the Raiders with roughly $100 million. I would say, and I will defer to you in a second, that it has not gone particularly well so far for the Patriots in this pivotal offseason. I think obviously going out and hiring Mike Vrabel was a good win. And I actually do think if that's all they do, it's probably still a positive offseason. But just kind of diving through some of the stuff today, ESPN did a winners and losers thing on their franchise tag period stuff. So did The Athletic, actually. Both of them more or less had the Patriots as a loser because we've seen, and I guess this is not entirely surprising based on what the market's going to look like. T. Higgins got tagged. Trey Smith got tagged. Those are two guys that the Patriots could have had an interest in. As ESPN wrote, the two best free agents in the class were Higgins and Smith. They both fit the Patriots' needs perfectly and now off the table. Sometimes that's just how the cookie crumbles. Theoretically, they could turn their attention to Ronnie Stanley, who was not tagged, if I'm correct. Then they did again. ESPN did some sort of simulation, I guess. It was probably putting it kindly, with the top free agents. Basically, they had their beat writers make offers. Mike Reese's offer for Stanley, fake offers, 4 over 165 guaranteed. That beat out a Ravens deal. So they had them, getting Ronnie Stanley, which would be a huge win for them. But the Chiefs this morning, as we tape this on Wednesday?
Yes.
Traded Joe Thuney to the Bears. And I saw Mike Giardi of Boston Sports Journal. Mike Giardi, Boston Sports Journal, said he spoke to a couple executives at the Combine who mentioned Ronnie Stanley as a possible left tackle for the Chiefs. And now that they've opened up some cash, maybe that's a thing. So, do you share my opinion that this has not been a great start to the offseason for the Patriots?
It's gone as... there's a lot of optimism with Mike Vrabel's hire. People had dreams and fantasies, and they've pretty much crumbled from here on in. And I think the reality started to set in for a lot of fans that, New England's not really a destination anymore. No one wants to come here, and even if you have the money, someone else is going to open up a bunch of money too, as you mentioned with Kansas City. Obviously, they got their butt kicked in the Super Bowl, but still, they're still Kansas City. That
Stanley thing could be huge. If they, I don't want to overstate it. I mean, whatever, at the end of the day. But if they lose, quote unquote lose, or Stanley goes to Kansas City and the money is somewhat similar when free agent opens next Wednesday?
Yes, around there.
7th, I believe. Or no, not the 7th, 12th. If that is the case, and he even takes less money to go there, that is a reinforcement of that thing that you are talking about. I think you start to see how bad teams stay bad, right? Is you either way, way, way overpay for guys who aren't worth what you're giving them, or you just continue to suck at drafting and you can't get out of that hole. At a certain point, you need to find ways to bring in talent that without convincing them that, basically force people to come here, whether it's the draft or the trade. So that's not entirely encouraging. I think it's not surprising too that, Higgins and Smith and Stanley, offensive line and receiver are major concerns or major areas of focus for them. To get into this from a sports betting angle or the odds and things like that, you can find these odds here and there. They come and go. This one I think was from Bet Online. A handful of players for which the Patriots could be in the market for. They were the favorites, according to Bet Online, to sign Stephon Diggs at 3-1. They were among the favorites for Chris Godwin at 6-1. I don't know how much I read into these markets, but I do think it kind of tells you what direction they'll probably be going. Would you advocate for either one of those moves, especially if it's going to be big money?
I think I would advocate for Chris Godwin.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really sure how much Stephon Diggs has left in the tank. Kind of saw the end of Buffalo where it looks like they moved on at the right time.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing rumors of not really rumors, just where the simulations, as you mentioned. Of
simulations.
Big
day for the simulations.
Yeah, just predictions or just made up sort of things of Kansas City signed Stephon Diggs. That's probably right for them, just in terms of their crop of receivers that they've drafted very well compared to New England. He's the number one guy behind Jalen Polk and Javon Baker, presumably, and even Demario Douglas. That's not really a good look. Chris Godwin, he's still shown production. Obviously, he's coming off of season-ending injury, and they both are, and so that's kind of a weird sort of thing. You're paying high dollar for these guys who are coming off devastating injuries, and so I believe in Chris Godwin as a talent, and I think he's a very worthy, number one receiver, at least a veteran for those guys, and better than Stephon Diggs, I would say.
Spotrac projecting a 3-year, $66.7 million deal for Chris Godwin, which again, feels about right. I agree. I think Godwin is easily the better decision. I do think if I were the Patriots, I would consider not sitting out because I think it's, if you have the money, you should spend it at a certain point, and it doesn't totally roll over in a way that makes sense to most people. So there are extenuating circumstances, but I think the worst thing that they can do at this point is go out and spend money just to spend money. And I think, like, to your point or what you're kind of hitting at, Diggs might be that, where it's like, I agree. I think Diggs makes most sense in Kansas City or Baltimore, maybe, like that type of deal. But if the Patriots come in and say, we'll give you 10% more, whatever, some major number, it's like he kind of has to take that, and that's how I think you run into problems. I don't know if that's the greatest play for a team that has a young quarterback too. We saw some of the issues they had with Josh Allen. But this is, again, it kind of speaks to the whole issue with when you build a crappy roster. There aren't a lot of good options. One thing that kind of has been bandied about is A.J. Brown. This is not on the rundown, so I'm kind of spurring this on you now. Matthew Berry reported Tuesday that the Patriots called the Eagles to gauge their interest in trading him. Matthew Berry is going to show up more than once in this podcast, so I guess he's now an insider. Good for him. What do you think of the A.J. Brown stuff? I know the contract, like he's about to get paid, like the elevated.
There's the Mike Vrabel connection also with the Titans, but still, like, the Eagles are probably going to want a lot for him, and it seems like, A.J. Brown is a top 10 wide receiver, but it also feels like if you're giving up like a second or a third, you could probably find an A.J. Brown in the drafts. We don't know how this executive team is going to draft. They didn't draft so well last year with Polk and Baker, so I understand those concerns, but still, like, I go over process over results at this point in your juncture, and so it makes more sense to keep your assets and take a risk on a Chris Godwin and even a Stephon Diggs. Like, I'd rather sign Stephon Diggs than trade assets for A.J. Brown.
That makes sense. I'm trying to look into again, it's tough this time of year. The betting markets are not, they are always evolving, so it's hard to pin down. Like, I can't get AFC East numbers, but Patriots right now 35-1 to win the AFC. They are 81 to win the Super Bowl. Is there anything that, like, if you bet on them today at 35-1 to win the AFC, what would they have to do to make you feel really good about that? And is that even possible at this point? Like, can they change the narrative in your head at all between now and, I guess, through the draft?
I think you need everything to go right. You need to sign a Milton Williams, another offensive tackle. Drake May is a legit top 5 guy and can elevate your roster. And I guess you're betting on regression for the Bills, as everyone's sort of predicting that, like, hey, Josh Allen can't keep this up forever. They're also under a cap crunch also. And, hey, Kansas City, they got their butt whooped. But, hey, who knows? Maybe this is, like, part of their decline, like the Patriots era. And, for the Ravens, Derrick Henry maybe gets hurt. And he might survive a season. And so you're kind of just building narratives in terms of what goes wrong for other teams rather than just what goes right for New England.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. Yeah, the more I think about it, it's like, I don't think there's a whole lot of this thing's going to take a little more time than maybe people wanted to acknowledge or realize. I think, again, these are all tied to decisions that haven't gone well, whether it's waiting maybe 1 year too long to part ways with Bill Belichick, whether, clearly lighting an entire year on fire with Gerard Mayo and potentially lighting multiple years on fire with Elliott Wolf if he's not up for the job. This thing is going to take some time. We did talk about, like, the combine, and you mentioned Will Campbell. He is fallen in the draft or in the odds markets for first lineman taken. He was the favorite. Now he is behind Armand Membu. Do you have any read on what the Patriots might want to do at 4? What do you think they should do? What's the most likely outcome?
I have zero read on what they're going to do.
Sick.
It just kind of feels like they're waiting on what the other teams are doing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Which we'll probably get to. Of are the Titans going to trade out? Are they just going to take Cam Ward? Shedeur Sanders, is he going to go in the top 3? Or is Cleveland desperate enough to take a quarterback? But even if Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter aren't there, like, I'm trading out. Like, you just got to get more talent on this team. Like, Ted McMillan is, like, the top wide receiver. Like, outside of, like, if Travis Hunter is a hybrid, but for Ted McMillan,
even though I still think McMillan might be better long term anyway.
I mean, possibly, but, like, there's a reason why he didn't run a 40. And like,
Sure.
I feel like one of the weaknesses for the Patriots is just like they're slow.
Speed.
Yeah, like you watch them out there, like their receivers can't even get any separation, which like he might, despite the lack of speed. But like again, this draft is so deep at wide receiver, at least from the way scouts and analysts are projecting it. Like I'd rather take a shot on those guys rather than just like buy high on a Ted McMillan.
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, the more I think about it too, I would be shocked if they take a receiver anywhere near the top of the draft. Like they would have to trade way down and be at the bottom half of the first round to even want to do that because, well, I guess it depends on who's making the decision. And that's something that we still don't have a ton of clarity on. Maybe, could be Vrabel, but like if Elliott Wolf has his say, they're not taking a receiver anywhere close to the top of the draft because that's just not what he's ever done. Like that's the whole Packer thing, right? Like the Packers haven't taken a receiver in the first round period in 20 years. So yeah, I would see them waiting on that position and trying to get value down the board. The problem is they tried that last year and it doesn't look like it's
well. I will say that the process was sound. They waited to take a wide receiver. They just took the wrong one.
Yeah,
so, they could have taken Lad McConkey instead of Jalen Polk, or stayed at some point and try to take work their way to get Xavier Worthy, one of those guys. But they took the wrong guy, and so I think the process was sound. It's just like you didn't get the maybe that's why you have a Ryan Cowden or John Stretcher and Mike Vrabel in there to tell you, hey, this is the wide receiver you should be taking, rather than having Elliott Wolf and others making those decisions.
That's a good point. The more I think about it too, like again, the Chiefs thing feels notable with the offensive line. Mm-hmm. They need to I don't think they are packing it in. I don't think they're rebuilding. So like they have work to do on that offensive line. So Stanley makes sense for them. And now the more I think about it, like that does feel kind of like those pieces are coming together. If he's not, and the Patriots are in that sweepstakes, I think signing him and using the fourth pick, if that's what it is, on an offensive lineman as well, might be their best long-term play and even short-term. Like, put Stanley on the left, pick one of these guys, put him on the right, and then work from there. That feels like a much better situation than they were in. And it just feels like the floor. I think they're kind of like in floor raising mode right now, where they need to just get a better overall mix of talent. So that's kind of one thing I would.
I would say if you're considering like bets or whatever, like I'm curious what the win total bet would be. Like if they're projected for like say what last year, like 4.5 wins it was last year. Like I take the over on that if they do make those moves that you're saying, like boosting their floor at the offensive line. Like I take their win total bet before any other, playoff bet or AFC East bet also. And so I think, like you said, I think this season is the floor racing game, which doesn't sound sexy. That doesn't win headlines. You're still going to get ripped on the radio shows and all of that. But still, you got to start somewhere.
3.5.
Right now?
Yeah.
I would
choose a ton of juice on the over. Minus 190 to the over.
Yeah, that's probably definitely going to go up.
According to covers.com.
Right, yeah, especially as, free agency hasn't gone underway. Who knows what they're going to do. But still, if it stays at 3.5, I would still take the over.
Even with that juice, I would bet one of your days at the casino on the over there. And, that number is going to change, but they are going to get... I do think, just having Vrabel goes a long way in getting them... Because... For as bad as they were last year, they were in a handful of games that I think maybe coaching and or slightly better talent would put them over the top. So their schedule stinks. It's
for bad. Sure, and especially with Drake May in the second year and the way he performed in the second half of the season. I don't know it wasn't always pretty, but still, you get those nooks and crannies out of the way, and he's now a more polished quarterback with Josh McDaniels also offensive coordinator. I think that also helps also with minus having a first-time play caller. Now you have a veteran play caller now. That could help out your floor also.
Right. We are neither bullish nor bearish on this Patriots team, it feels like.
7-9 or 7-10, I think that'd
be a major success.
Yeah, obviously, again, you're not winning the headlines, but still, you'd be excited by that.
Yeah, it's linear progress. And, that was the thing with last year. It's just you cannot see that. Speaking of linear progress, a great decision that you can make every week is to check out the Spread and Essence sports betting and football picks podcast, I guess, during the football season at least. You can listen to that wherever you get your audio podcasts, whether that's Spotify, Apple, any other number of outlets, or you can watch, which is maybe my preferred way of doing things because I'm handsome and so is Jason. You can go do that at Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch. Just go look for Nesson, type that in, and it'll bring you to our page where you can watch this and every other great video podcast Nesson has to offer. All right, let's get into a more broad viewpoint or discussion about the league. I think for people like me who don't care whatsoever about the draft, the combine is at least interesting in the fact that it brings a lot of people who broker in information together, and we get nuggets and tidbits out of that. We start to see some of the wheels get put into motion for roster management and things like that. As such, Aaron Rodgers is a big talking point as always. He has not been officially released, has he?
Not officially. I think that's probably when the free agency period
Sure,
opens.
yes. They will make, I think he's a
Post June 1st.
It's going to be a post June 1st designation, so it's going to save them some money on the cap, et cetera, et cetera. But he is, for all intents and purposes, not going to be a member of the New York Jets in the future, in 2025 and beyond. Rest in peace to that glorious era of Jets and Aaron Rodgers football. So, trying to figure out where it does feel, and this, speaks to the fact that the guy is 100 years old and has been hurt. Not a lot of buzz around Aaron Rodgers. I still find him one of the more fascinating athletes in the world, but that's just me. I've more or less worshipped him for a good part of my life, so that's something I have to reckon with, and I think about that a lot, and maybe go to confession once in a while about it. But so where he goes is gonna, I think, so this is kind of ties in. We're gonna talk about the combine a little bit, or the draft, look ahead to the draft. I think Rodgers is tied to a lot of stuff and could really dictate what happens with a handful of teams in free agency and in the draft. As it stands right now, though, the New York Giants are the favorite to sign Aaron Rodgers from Bet Online at minus 300. I had minus 600. I made a mistake, but it's minus 300, followed by the Raiders at plus 175, the Steelers plus 225, and the Titans 5-1. Ricky and I kind of talked about this a few weeks ago. I felt like the Steelers were a layup or a slam dunk, whatever basketball, metaphor you want to use. That number has kind of been depressed a little bit. Matthew Berry, back for more, reported earlier this week or last week that the Giants are his preference, then the Titans, and then there's also the possibility that he just sits around and waits for an opening to come about. Max Crosby is lobbying to Vegas. The Giants being the favorite makes sense logistically, like from the purest sense of logistics. He lives or has a place there. He would be going to the same place on Sundays, maybe a little bit different during the week. Make this make sense for me. Minus 300, I know this is based on where the money's coming from more than anything else. It's not just an indication that he's going to the Giants, but do you think he ends up with the Giants?
I'm sorry, Mike. I can't make this sense for you. This makes no sense at all. Like, if you're the Giants, you saw what Aaron Rodgers did to Garrett Wilson. He kind of stunted his career. Like, Malik Neighbors is coming off a record season. Yeah. Like, I don't want Aaron Rodgers near Malik Neighbors at all. Like, Neighbors had like 1,200 receiving yards, over 1,200 receiving yards with garbage quarterback play. And so, like, maybe he could do the same with Rodgers, but still, like, as we saw last year, like, they needed to trade for Devontae Adams because he didn't get along with Garrett Wilson. Yeah. And so it just feels like putting a Band-Aid on a disastrous offseason for them, especially being made public in the Hard Knocks season with them talking, more or less trash about Saquon Barkley. And now they're trying to put a Band-Aid on that by signing Aaron Rodgers to win now against a loaded NFC East potentially with Washington and the Eagles, being the Super Bowl champs. Like, you got to just blow it up, at least to an extent. You obviously have Neighbors there, and you have Dexter Lawrence, and you'll have other young pieces, but I don't think Aaron Rodgers is the answer.
No, I don't think so either. It'd be interesting. I mean,
for sure, yeah.
It'd be fun. The Packers play the Giants this year, so there's that little wrinkle, too. Do the Jets? I don't think the Jets do, which would be awesome. But they, so this feels like somebody trying to save their job and also do two things at once, where Joe Schoen, I think he's on thin ice to begin with, and it's actually kind of wild that, not to get into another topic that we'll get to in a little bit, like, has an ability to trade up and mortgage more of their future to get that number one pick. I think, though, if he ends up in New York, the most likely outcome, and this, again, I just can't totally make sense of this from a long-term success perspective, is trade up to number one, take Cam Ward, and sit him behind Aaron Rodgers until either Rodgers falls apart or he just gets to learn under Rodgers for a year, which, if Rodgers is into that, I could see it make, like, there's no way at this point in his career, there's no way he can be threatened by even, the number one pick in the draft, right? Like, if they bring him in and they say, hey, we're going to go get Cam Ward, but this is your job for at least a year, and then we'll go from there, I feel like he might lean into the mentor thing. I don't know. Trying to make sense of anything he thinks and does is
right. But they
foolhardy.
also, they could they could sign Aaron Rodgers and use a late round pick on Jackson Dart, who made a name for himself at the combine, but still, like, I don't know why you would do that. That makes no sense to me.
Or just draft Cam Ward and sign, I don't even know, like a middle of the road Gardner Minshew type of guy.
Sam Darnold.
Not even if you don't even need to, like, because you're gonna suck probably no matter what. Like, does Aaron Rodgers put you over the top? I also don't think they're gonna Jackson Dart. It feels like Jackson Dart's moving up the. I thought I saw a mock with him going 7 to the Jets, which is also hilarious. So now we're talking that for the foreseeable future. So yeah, like it's funny. It kind of makes some sense in a way that, like, if you're just trying to, you want to talk about floors, like you want to raise the floor ever so slightly, you want to get a little more juice. I think that technically achieves that. But even then, like, the Jets were kind of an afterthought for most of last season once he wasn't either healthy or good. And we saw the Jets throw everything at the wall. They just released Devontae Adams today. Like, it just didn't work. And it feels like he has to go. If he wants to be successful still, he's got to go to a place that has something more or less ready built and is asked to do less with more. And, I mean, like, that's kind of no duh. But so, like, looking at the odds, the Vikings at 18-1, despite the hilarious, career symmetry with Favre and everything, feels like it makes a lot more sense with they're going to let Sam Darnold walk if they don't feel completely confident in J.J. McCarthy's ability to start right away. Maybe it makes sense for them. They probably are just going to let McCarthy take the reins, though. I feel like the decision not to franchise Darnold, plus the fact that they're 18-1, kind of speaks to the direction they're going. But, like, those options there's not a ton of them. Like, even the Steelers doesn't feel like a great spot for him from that regard either. I don't know. The Raiders is kind of the Giants thing all over.
I mean, that's another one where, like, I just want that to happen just for the hilarity of it.
Yeah.
Just Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady together in one building with Pete Carroll as well.
Oh, that is, yeah.
I mean, just like have all those personalities together. Like, that'd just be hilarious to watch.
From an entertainment standpoint, it is easily the number one thing, right? Like, because he goes to Vegas, that's just funny in its own.
After Devontae Adams left,
yeah, they bring Devontae Adams back. Like, that's the Devontae thing is an interesting tie-in too, because it's like, who's in Vegas for him? Like, Bowers, I guess.
That's really it. Just Bowers and just bereft of talent. No offensive line. The running back stink because Jacobs went to the Packers, right. And Jacoby Myers, he's there, but sounds like he might be traded somewhere else as well. And so they have no talent whatsoever. So like I said, it's just for entertainment purposes. This has nothing to do with on-field product because they'd just be in the same spot they were last year.
Yeah, I like the idea too of him going to Kansas City, playing them. Him going to Denver, playing the Broncos. I could see it work. But I could see that just as easily with the Giants, too. I do kind of like the idea of him going to Dallas. Like, that's good. That would just be so... God, that'd be so weird. Yeah, so that's... I'm kind of surprised more the more I think about it. He just didn't retire. I feel like that probably would have been his better play. But speaking of the number one pick, speaking of the Giants, there was... DraftKings on Tuesday. I don't know if this was a story for them or their odds are actually this the odds are no longer there, so it's hard to say. They had the Titans and the Giants with the same odds to draft number 1 overall. ESPN reported the Giants want to trade up to number 1. I saw another story, I think it was the most recent Athletic mock draft, had the Giants trading up to number 1. I did a little bit of number crunching because that's what I do. I'm a big math guy. Based on the value chart, if the Giants trade number 3, number 34, and number 65, the math more or less works out to go get number 1 from Tennessee. I guess let's look at this from a Titans perspective, at least to start. You will 100% do that, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
What say you?
100%. Abdul Carter, he is... I some Michael Parsons comparisons, and obviously he is a game wrecker, but still, the history of taking an edge rusher number 1 or just a non-quarterback number 1 just doesn't really reflect well on you, and especially with the Titans, where they felt like they were quarterback away last year, but Will Levis just was a train wreck, and so that they kind of just blew up their operation. You kind of have to start off just ground zero. Retool your team, and the small areas, the South is still kind of winnable. And so you just need a competent quarterback, but still, I don't think that's Cam Ward number 1.
Okay, I see what you're saying. I was gonna say, if you think they're a quarterback away, then wouldn't they just stay at 1? But I guess you're saying is if they had a responsible adult for a quarterback, they could contend in that division, as opposed to. You think they're farther along in the rebuild than maybe some other people do.
Right, yeah. I'm sort of saying, that's what they thought last year, but it turns out they were wrong. and so,
they were wrong.
Yeah, which is why they have the number 1 pick. And so,
they were very wrong.
And so that's why you need more assets to retool your team to a better standard.
I agree 100%. This is not moving from 1 to 6 even, too. And so, if you look at everything with this draft, is the quarterback class is not good, according to some people. Everything else is super deep, so why not load up? And the other thing, too, is the discussion about the top 4 picks has more or less revolved around 4 players, 5 if you want to talk about maybe the tackle situation changing. So you're going to get one of those guys, especially when you know that the Giants are coming up to take a quarterback. Unless you feel you absolutely have to go get Abdul Carter, then why not move down and just take whatever's left of Carter or Hunter? You know what I mean? Yeah. So it feels like a more or less a catbird seat too. And then 34 is more or less a first round pick. 65, that's the first pick in the 3rd round. That's again more or less a second round pick. Go get 3 really good players and then maybe look to the quarterback market. And this is, again, talking about earlier, a lot of the Rodgers thing. I think Rodgers in Tennessee makes some sense for both sides, too. I don't think it's a great roster, but you could go kind of retool a little bit on the fly.
Yeah, you have Calvin Ridley, who's already an established number 1. I guess for our discussion before, maybe he's overpaid for a number 1 receiver, but he's still, he's still competent with Will Levis under center.
Right.
And so that's still a good, floor to have in terms of your offense. They have decent running backs, Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears. They're pretty decent. So again, the South is pretty winnable. Like the Texans, they're fine, but they're not really threatening.
Of the 3 Rodgers things that we've talked about, and 4 if you want to bring in the Steelers. So let's say Giants, Raiders, Steelers, Titans, the top 4 favorites. Titans are 5-1 right now, by the way. They winning the South, the AFC South, is the most realistic expectation or potential outcome of those 4. They're not going to win the NFC East, where the Commanders and the Eagles are elite. They're not going to win the West, where all 3 of those teams are better, and they're probably not going to win the AFC North, where the Bengals and the Steelers kind of are still running the top of that division, or Bengals and the Ravens, excuse me. This just feels like something I would consider if I were the Titans. They also have a new GM too, so they've got a little bit of runway where if you make this trade, the only way it comes back to bite you in the ass is if Cam Ward is a generational talent, or whoever goes 2 is a generational talent.
Right.
And you've got time. If it doesn't work, next year's quarterback class, I saw Albert Breer wrote something next year's quarterback class looks a lot better. The kid from LSU probably would have gone at the top of this draft this year. So I would kick the can.
Yeah, but basically if you're the Titans, you're hoping that the Giants make the same mistake the Panthers made with Bryce Young, where like turns out Bryce Young was not a generational talent, and they wasted their entire draft. And the Bears are, they didn't make the best moves, but they got Ben Johnson now. Now their trajectory is looking a little bit better now. But still, like, you're hoping that Cam Ward is Bryce Young more or less.
Sure. The best decision that anyone else can make is to listen to The Spread every week here on the NESN Podcast Network. You can go to Apple, Spotify, wherever else you get your podcasts. You can listen to them there, or just go Google The Spread NESN Podcast, and you're going to get every single outlet that you can find. Or you can watch it on Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube. Just search for NESN and go wild. So. All right, one thing I did want to get to real quick, and then we've got some wrestling stuff at the end here, so we'll kind of go as quick as we can through this stuff. And as an homage, this is kind of a news story that broke this week, is that ESPN is kicking around the horn to the curb. Again, as a millennial kid, nothing better than going home and eating pizza rolls on a Tuesday and just watching old sports reporters and writers yell about stuff. I wanted to kind of tie this in as an MLB futures type of thing. We're kind of always just resetting as we get a little bit deeper into the spring. So I'm going to throw a few of these at you, some more or less favorites, and let me buy or sell for me as they do around the horn, and I'll hit my buzzer or whatever to give you points as I see fit. So we'll start with the Dodgers to win the World Series. They are plus 240 favorites, overwhelming favorites. I think the last time it was this short was 2002 when the Yankees were like 2-1 to win the World Series. So everybody's all over the Dodgers for good sake or good reason. You buying or selling the Dodgers at plus 240?
I'm going to sell the Dodgers, as scary as that is with their stacked roster. But I look back on the odds of the past winners. There has not been this short of a winner since the Cubs, plus 660. This is according to Sports Odds History. Other ones, obviously the Rangers, shocking everybody, but still you have some other ones like 10-1s and plus 1150 was some other ones as well. And so there was some decent, they're not overwhelming underdogs, but still the outside of the pack is what I'm looking towards, and the NL East specifically, all the crop of teams there. And so I'm selling the Dodgers, as scary as that sounds.
I'm selling them too. I just think the numbers that you just spit out speak to how hard it is to win, even when you've got an awesome team. I like the Phillies at 10-1. I like their front line starting pitching in a series. Aaron Judge, winner of 2 of the last 3 MVPs, is 3-1 to win the MVP. Buying or selling Aaron Judge winning a third MVP?
I'm buying Aaron Judge. I've looked at the other, Bobby Witt's the only.
Bobby Witt's technically the favorite, plus 270.
Right, but he finished second MVP voting, won the batting title, and Gold Glove, Silver Slugger, 32 home runs, 109 RBIs. What else he's got to do to win the MVP? If he didn't win it then, I know Judge has an awesome season as well, but it's only an injury away. That's really the only thing that's stopping Aaron Judge.
I'm buying Judge since he broke in. By far the most WAR Fangraphs WAR, 51 to Mookie's second closest at 46 since 2022, 27 versus 19. He was an MVP before Soto. Soto's gone. Soto finished third in voting last year. Those votes have to go somewhere. I think they go back to Judge, assuming he has a great season. So I'm buying as well. We are simpatico so far. National League Cy Young, Paul Skeens, maybe you've heard of him, 2-1, very short favorite to win. 2-1 to win Cy Young. Buy or sell?
But buy or sell instead of taking the middle, I'm going to buy.
Okay.
Wow. I'm thinking this is too short of odds, but still I can't really make a case for anyone else. Zach Wheeler, I guess, is more intriguing as the second shortest, but still Paul Skeens is he's got this nasty new pitch. He's got a new cutter.
Some of the bullpen videos and things like that, live BP is oh my God.
It's amazing. And so why not? MLB needs stars, especially for pitchers, and Paul Skeens is your guy, and so why not?
This one does break our exercise a little bit, where it's he is by far the best choice to win MVP, but we're not really talking about value. But if we were, I would look at Michael King at 20-1, who had a great season last year, got some filthy stuff. But yeah, Skeens 133 innings in his career. Never had an elbow issue. You never know if he can stay healthy. So there's that. Final one. Most RBIs. Juan Soto to lead the big leagues in RBIs. Plus 160. I think this is the Bet Online special. Buying or selling him to lead the world in RBI?
Just sell.
This is a bad one. This is my fault.
Yeah, I mean, that's just it's got to be somebody else. You can't really pick the favorites on these. I don't think this unscientific, but I don't think the favorites have won consecutive times, and so I'm just selling.
Yeah, he just doesn't feel like a major run producer to me for whatever reason. I don't know why. I would look at like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. 11-1, Yordan Alvarez 12-1, or even Judge 7-1. It's just I don't know. The Swoboda thing kind of feels like it's gone off the radar a little bit. All right. We are still on the radar here at the Spread Nesson Sports Betting Picks podcast. Make sure you check us out every week right here on Apple, Spotify, wherever else you listen to your podcast. If you'd rather do that, I think it's a perfect way to pass the time on your way into work. You and I both have long commutes. Or you can watch it if that's I would not recommend doing that in the car necessarily, but once you get to work, you could listen to it watch it on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch. Just go look for Nesson and you can find the spread. All right. Wrestling. You're not a huge WWE guy. That's the thing. You've been more or less like, this feels like a good career path for you to start talking about wrestling, but the irony is that you don't totally love it. But I did watch you guys' segment from the other day. Just general quick recap of your thoughts. You kind of liked it.
At least the heel
turn. The John Cena heel turn, I should say.
At least the John Cena heel turn, the execution of it, I liked. Just the reactions to it, and all that. People comparing it to Hogan's heel turn. Like, just get out of here. Like, Hogan's heel turn actually changed the industry. WWE is still the same, with John Cena after turning heel. I
agree. That was a bit much. Again, I was, like we kind of talked about, I was sort of expecting it. Well, not Ethan kind of put the worm in our bug in our ear. When you see it happen, for me, it was like hearing the Cody Rhodes F-bomb was like that one thing that like got an audible gasp out of me as I was sitting on the couch by myself on Saturday night. I still don't totally love it because it just feels like they're doing it to do it, and it's like, well, you've had 25 years to do this, and now we're not going to do it. Or now we are going to do it when it almost feels hot shot a little bit. So I don't totally love it. But at the same time, I was talking to Ricky about this off air the other day. A Cody Cena babyface versus babyface match at Mania would have done absolutely nothing for me. My issue with Cena is just like, the guy's lost his fastball, which is no disrespect to him, but we talked about this in the office the other day. Like, he had that run there, which was, 5 years ago now? Maybe even more.
Around there, yeah.
With like the U.S. Open or the U.S. title open challenge thing, where he was. Correct me if I'm wrong, because you have a much better wrestling eye than I do. He was putting forth good matches.
He was, yeah. It was the best run of his, I guess, modern era, if you want to call it.
And I know he's been very sporadic since then, but I can't remember the last thing he's done in a ring that I was like, this is enjoyable. Which again, that sounds far more negative and personal than I mean it to. This is a Springfield guy too, so I go to the mat, no pun intended, for a Springfield College guy like John Cena. But it's just like I don't totally buy it more than anything. So maybe the heel thing does help. That being said, looking at we finally have some WrestleMania odds. The Charlotte Flair versus Tiffany Stratton match. Flair is a -150 favorite, +110 for Stratton. We don't need to get into that because I think the attention that build deserves so far is negligible at best. Jey Uso is a -900 favorite at Bet Online to win the World Heavyweight Championship over Gunther at 5-1. And I do think that's somewhat tied in to the now finally we have the John Cena versus Cody Rhodes number. As it stands right now, and this has been kind of a moving market, Cena's a -250 prohibitive favorite to win that title from Cody Rhodes at +170. Just to kind of tie your thoughts from the other day, you think this is the right move and the only move?
This has to be the only move because you've wasted a generational turn if he doesn't win at Mania. Like, the whole booking of this aspect is just, you just throw out the window. Like, why are you you're bringing Travis Scott and The Rock in just to do a simple turn, and then you sour on it just because you want Twitch streamers to react to it, and because like what else are you gonna do after that? Like, you can't turn face after that. It just seems a bad story.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, what else would be so? Is there even these guys are so far ahead of it that trying to guess where they're going is easier said than done, and they get paid money for things that we don't. I don't even know what the play would be if Cody wins this match, and to your point, like, this is as hot as it's going to get with him at that point. And also speaking of like the long-term booking is Cody loses and now he's going up against the once in a lifetime heel, and the money's in the chase, right? And so it refreshes Cody as a babyface, gives him a chance to chase it. Cena eventually. I also like the idea of Cena doing the favor for somebody, whether it's Cody or somebody else down the road. I'm just using lingo left and right, where it's, he goes out on his back and puts somebody over. I think that makes sense. I don't totally love it, but I understand it. The minus 250, I think, kind of speaks to where people are with being in the same boat as you. I also think of like the J number was huge to begin with, but I think that even makes more sense now. So you get like kind of the balance of the good guy wins and a bad guy wins. Like I feel even stronger about Jay winning the title now. So that's I don't know. Are you looking forward to it? Do you care?
I don't care about the Jay Gunther match period. Because I'm not a big fan of Jey Uso.
Yeah, me neither.
I'm not a yeet guy, so to speak. But I'm interested in Cena Cody. I think I'm curious if Cena can regain that fastball because Cody is a great in-ring worker, and I'm curious whether he can elevate John Cena to his level. I
will say too, the Cena looked okay in the chamber.
Yeah, in fine
in limited time. So I think he could pull it off. I think there's going to be a lot of smoke and mirrors. I think The Rock lingers over this all as he typically does with everything now, for better or worse. And
Travis Scott as well.
God, Travis Scott, go. Would you rather get punched in the face by Travis Scott or I'm trying to tie this through arm wrestle Will Campbell?
Probably arm wrestle Will Campbell. Given I don't want my eardrums to rupture.
Okay, fair. Yes, exactly. There's nothing worse than a ruptured eardrum, as we have said. Jason, this has been a delight. Thank you for pinch hitting and joining me. You have a craps table or something to get to, so we'll get out of here. And you are not a yeet guy. I'm glad we got to the bottom of that as well. So that is Jason. I am Mike. This has been The Spread. Thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you again next week. Goodbye.